go live. And so here we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome, everyone. This is the third day of our Environmental Action Civics Week. This is really exciting. I'll just start introducing myself. My name is Raisa Yuribica, and I am Program Manager at Earth Force. And with me, it's Alyssa McConkey, that is our Chief Program Manager, and we are going to moderate this discussion today. Today, we're really happy to be hosting this amazing panel of humans that will be sharing their experiences on implementing environmental action civics in the work that they do. We're looking to get to know them better, learn from them, and grow together as a community, because all of us are here looking to make sustainable changes in our local communities. So here, we're just going to start with a little round of introductions so you guys get to know them a little bit better. I'll just start with the first person that is in my screen, with Alicia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Torres. I'm with the Everglades Foundation. I am the K-12 Everglades Champion Schools Program Manager here. And our mission is, we're located in Florida, in South Florida in specific. And our mission at the Everglades Foundation is working towards restoring and protecting America's Everglades through science, advocacy, and education.
Awesome. Do you want to go next, Erin?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Cassidy. I'm the Education Manager at Friends of the Rouge. I've been with this organization for about 11 years, and we are a nonprofit organization based in Metro Detroit, whose mission is to restore, protect, and enhance the Rouge River through stewardship, education, and collaboration. The Rouge River is one of the most urbanized in the state of Michigan. It's considered one of the most polluted in the country. Famously caught on fire in 1969, the same year as the Cuyahoga. So some of my responsibilities at the organization include coordinating some general outreach activities like community organizing, outreach engagement through speaking engagements, tabling requests, legislator communications, stormwater education, and but where my heart lies and why I'm here today is we work with teachers to get their students out to do water quality testing and action. We kind of started with the green program and work with schools to get their kids out to the banks of the Rouge River to do that water quality testing. So we're focusing more on the river watershed level as a tool for investigation to spur that environmental action. So it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Great to have you here. Do you want to go next, Chanel?
Yes. Can y'all hear me?
Yay!
Okay. I had some tech issues before we started, but we're all good now. Hi, everyone. My name is Chanel, and I'm the program manager at Austin Youth River Watch. We're based in Austin, Texas. I pretty much help run a outdoor education after school and summer program. We work specifically with historically marginalized youth and an after school and summer program for high school students. And we also have an internship program for those age 18 to 24, all of which doing different kinds of environmental work like water quality testing, trash cleanups, native tree and grass plantings in riparian zones, and also the fun stuff, fun outdoor adventure things like camping and rock climbing, kayaking, all of those things too.
That sounds awesome. Raina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. Right, I am Raina Ripple, and I'm going to explain part of the reason why I'm here. I'm the executive director of Communitopia, but I'm going to quickly turn it over to Sharda, who is our director of school programs, and she came on in the middle of this grant, so kind of had to do a little bit of a transition. But so we're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and our mission is to provide transformative climate change education that develops today's climate leaders and advances equitable solutions. So again, I'll let Sharda talk more about the programs that we're working on, and specifically with this group, but we are just thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Sharda, you can go next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sharda Sangameshwaran. I am Director of School Programs at Communitopia. As Raina mentioned, we are in Pittsburgh, and I get the really fun job of going into schools and working directly with students. We have climate action teams at various schools, so from the middle school level to the high school level mainly, and we learn about climate change and what everyone can do to do their part. A lot of their action items, as we'll discuss, are right in their schoolyard because, that's where they spend their time. But I'm thrilled to be here and to meet all of my fellow panelists as well.
That sounds amazing. Do you want to go next, Wenzel?
Sure. Thank you all. And nice to meet all you folks. Good to see you folks again. My name is Wenzel Alfred. I am the Camp to Community Fellows Coordinator at Yes Nature Neighborhoods here in unceded Chochenyo Ohlone territory, we now call Richmond, California. And Richmond has a long history of, bad rap, high crime and all the whole bit. And so we are breaking down barriers to allow folks in the community to experience outdoor activities, whether that's 8-year-old little moppets going to summer camp, or our teen youth taking on leadership roles at summer camps. And that also involves, breaking down barriers to outdoor activities, whether it be transportation, finances, or equipment. We support them in outings such as backpacking, mountain biking, kayaking, and overnight camping and the whole bit. And there's also an environmental component to that, EJ, as well as social justice components involved in everything that we do. So hence us getting involved in the Environmental Action Congress back in 2021. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. So last but not least, Kirsch, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Hello, everyone. Welcome. So Lisa Kirscher, I do go by the nickname Kirsch, and I'm the Education Director for Brightways Learning. And we are a K-12 educational nonprofit. Our main office is in Missoula, Montana, which is in the western side of Montana. But we work especially across the state of Montana, Alaska in particular, in rural and remote schools and communities, but also across North America and have a global reach as well. And everything kind of what we're about is that resiliency for students, educators, and school systems, especially in interacting with communities. And so from neuroscience and trauma responsiveness to educator wellness, and then also to kind of whatever that looks like for school systems. And we're involved here for the Rise Challenge Big Sky in supporting Earth Force and FEMA's hopes to increase that resiliency in communities through youth. So I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks.
Yeah, just to share this just happened last week and it was amazing. Thank you, Kurt, for introducing yourself. I'm just going to share with the audience. If you guys have any questions to this panel, please feel free to share them in the chat and we'll be sharing those throughout the discussion. Yes, all of them are doing an amazing job. I do agree with that. I'll start just with the first question that I've been meaning to just talk with you guys. So what is Environmental Action Civics and how it has impacted the work that you do? I'll just start with Chanel.
Yeah. So I think when I think about environmental action civics, I think about what it is, and I also think about what it is not, is something that I learned in facilitating a civic project with my students. And civic action, or the project rather, is definitely student driven. It's an opportunity for you to exercise their critical thinking and problem solving skills in a way that results in real personal development for themselves, youth development, as well as real change in their community. And I think a lesson I learned as a teacher, a facilitator, is that environmental action civics is not the traditional educational model with me telling them what to do. It is completely every single step driven by them, which is hard when you think of being a lesson planner. You cannot plan all your lessons out for the semester. You kind of have to go with the flow as they make decisions on what their project is. But I see it as myself like serving as a facilitator that supports the youth in reaching the goals that they're already setting for themselves. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you're mentioning that it's really student driven and, just go with the flow. Does any of you have any other thoughts that you guys want to add? Yeah, sure then.
I have to say I'm actually brand new to Environmental Action Civics. I've been a naturalist for over 20 years, but I was looking for a way to make impact, and this kind of came across. I met Sarah Jennings actually at a unrelated conference, and that's how I sort of got introduced to this. I looked at your website, and what I really loved about following the Earth Force model is that you really spell it out. So you take the guesswork out of it, and so you've got these like really cool steps that you follow from start to finish. And I thought, that really made sense. It actually made it much easier for me as a total newcomer to take this and jump right in because it was all sort of spelled out for me. So just wanted to put that plug in.
Yeah, Kirsch.
So I moved from Toledo, Ohio. So I know about Detroit, Aaron, for sure, to Missoula more than 30 years ago for wildlife biology. And I didn't understand, so when I moved here, environmentalism, that term was a hot button word, right? And especially in the natural resource extraction economy, right? That Montana had in particular back then. And what I love about, and so it was difficult to kind of talk about change, right, without too many barriers on all sides. But what I like about environmental action civics, it kind of reframes the conversation and the lens for this kind of thing, because now we're talking about it's in most cases kind of that community resiliency, safety, sustainability in a kind of a different way. And we work with some conservative, like even this last round of like Rise Challenge, some conservative communities. And they see it that way. And it's a better, deeper conversation, especially with the youth taking on some of these projects, right? When we're talking about it that way. So I really appreciate that about it.
Yeah. Yeah, Alicia.
Yeah, so I'll second everything that everybody else has already shared, but I do want to emphasize that the teaching methodology does change through this program. As Chanel had mentioned, it changes the way that teachers normally teach. And I work primarily with providing professional development for our teachers, and they're the ones that are in the classroom that is implementing the action civics with their students. So I think that it's sometimes a challenge for teachers to let go of the reins a little bit and allow the students to take charge. It allows the students to make mistakes, and it's okay. And how do you recover from that? And it really teaches these lifelong skills that are beyond just the classroom. It's for future life skills, really. That creates this. It allows them to also give the platform of that they are the problem solvers, and that their voice can be heard in a way that is empowering for them, and that it's not scary and to reach out to decision makers, and that you have the support of the teachers right there to back them up, to know that, hey, if it doesn't go your way, like, it's okay. And that's where that teacher support helps with the students, I think, is a really great way for them to address issues in their backyard.
Yeah. I love that, that you mentioned that it connects to the lived experiences of those youth, so they are trying to solve, those environmental issues that they see in their day-to-day lives. Erin Benzel, do you want to add something?
Yes, to what everyone is saying, because all that stuff rings so true. Our youth being already immersed in environmental justice and social justice, these are the things that they see. They see the litter, that they learn about leave no trace. But, oftentimes it's not like incorporated into a curriculum for them how to go about doing anything about it. And that's why I love the Environmental Action Congress so much. And as as Sharda said, it puts all the steps in perspective and lays it out like, in a nice, sequential format. And, so, and then with the whole stepping up to step back, it is difficult to, and as Alicia and Chanel mentioned, to be as high up on Hart's ladder as possible when working with these youth. And sometimes it's tough because, you can see something kind of going off and you kind of want to steer it a little bit this way, but it's also okay to let them see, like, to let them go so far and then have to take a few steps back. That's not it's not the end of the world when they can see and learn from their mistakes or their failures, or not failures, but,
Yeah,
their direction they went.
that's so true. Erin.
Yeah. So we also work with the teachers to train them how to facilitate this process in the classroom. But when thinking about this question, it was really bringing me back to the original purpose of our program. So if you are familiar with the Field Manual for Water Quality or the Global Rivers Environmental Education Network, the GREEN program, so if you have some history with Earth Force, it actually started in our neighboring watershed, the Huron River watershed, where a group of students at their school were all contracting hepatitis. And through kind of this process, they did some investigation and deduced that the students getting hepatitis were all windsurfers, and they were all windsurfing on the river at a location where there were very high E. coli levels. So they actually partnered with the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor with Dr. Bill Stapp, and did testing to find these high E. coli levels. They worked with the local communities and raised awareness about the issue, and they ended up realizing the problem and actually shutting down the windsurfing station so kids weren't getting sick anymore. So, that was kind of the first piece of this student voice leading to action. And then they took that information and did it watershed wide in the Rouge River watershed. So we had 16 schools that started, and the whole purpose of the program was to do investigation and then report to local units of government on what areas of the river needed improvement. And we kind of really got away from that as the years went on. I mean, the program's been going on for 30 something odd years. So it's really about bringing it back to the original purpose of the program and not just having it be a really amazing once in a lifetime field day, but to actually take everything a step further and take real action in their community.
I just love everything that you guys are saying. I just love that there is, it's a student driven, youth voice is in there. We encourage youth to talk to different stakeholders, and we encourage youth to base their research based on their life experiences and take action. All of that is part of what it's Environmental Action Civics. And you guys have explained it just perfect on my point of view. So we can just move forward, and we can discuss a little bit more how does intersectionality play a role in environmental action civics? And with this, I mean, how does EAC addresses the differences in visible, maybe and invisible power relationships, and how it can help address inequality? And I know that Kirsch was asking about this question before, so I'll just start with you, Kirsch.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a couple of responses for it. One is, so we in the Western Montana and across Montana, we work with a lot of, in which we're doing the Rise Challenge in particular. We work with a lot of Native American populations, and of course, historically, things were done to them or for them, right? But never with them or having them lead their destiny, right? And so what I love about this and engaging in some of our schools that are on the reservation and serve that generally underserved population is that it helps to empower those youth to be able to and help them learn skills to see that and take action, right? To do the research, to make solutions for their own communities. And that's super powerful, of course, just echoing what everybody else says too. And what was especially interesting, we had another student group there that they related to natural hazards to the unhoused that are really growing in what's in this really booming area near just north of Missoula. And it was really interesting because then the students were like, well, we're going to take this information, these surveys, people are unhoused because they can't pay their mortgages anymore. And the economy's, just growing too much. They can't pay rent anymore, right? Just because of how it's booming right now. And they took kind of what they're found to their local government, and their local government, I think that they were absolutely shocked that the local government was just like, we don't care, not our problem. And we don't even want to encourage that. And they were just shocked, right? And so they took it then to, okay, so nonprofit organizations, private efforts, and that was part of what their project was to help during the winter support unhoused, families, right? And so that was what their project was. And so just thinking about how students understand and reveal those layers, rather than making assumptions about what a solution might be, it really helps them to get to what is at the core of what we're seeing and what we think there's a problem about. And so that's where that, it was just cool to see those different levels of, authoritative, and then how do you act with that? So anyway.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I love when youth goes and asks for a change, to local governments and knock doors, Sometimes the response, it's not ideal, but it's just that trying, they will have those skills to do that in the future. And that's something that is really rich, I think.
One addition really quick is the judges. We had a great, amazing expert panel of judges for the Rise Challenge, and they very much encouraged these students to keep pushing the government. So that was kind of cool.
That's really cool, actually. Does someone else want to add something? I'll just call someone, I think. Erin.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to add, I think we heard somewhere on the state level, if someone gets 3 letters about the same subject, then they'll actually look into it a little bit more, that your voice really matters. Just there's 3 people. I mean, but I guess to address this question, I will say, in our experience and in our watershed, our underserved communities tend to be downstream. So we have our wealthier upstream communities, and our students in our downstream and underserved communities have lower water quality, and they have literal barrier access, barriers to accessibility to the river. The further you get downstream, the harder it is to even reach the river, or in the cases of the city of Detroit, they piped the river underground, and so there are ghost streams, right? They are all buried underground in concrete, and they have no literal access to a river, let alone would be able to enter the river and look for bugs, or because it's too dangerous, it's too deep and fast where they're living. So it can be hard, especially dealing with action projects when you're dealing with some big systemic issues like combined sewer overflows, where you have raw sewage being discharged directly into the river after rain events. And, you need millions or billions of dollars to remedy the situation, or the city of Detroit that just doesn't have the resources to combat these giant issues. But instead you can focus more on reducing the amount of maybe stormwater that's getting into the river by doing rain gardens or bioswales, just trying to tackle the bigger problem in a more manageable way, like something like climate change, where you're like, well, okay, what can we do about climate change? And just breaking it into smaller actionable steps for that. And we have also really seen that schools in our wealthier communities, they have more river access a lot of the time, or they even have the river running on their property. And they tend to be the earlier adopters of action projects because they have more resources, and they just tend to have more flexibility, and there is really a disparity between communities in their ability to adopt, or the quickness in which that they can adopt programs like this. So you know, it is really important to provide some financial resources for student projects, or, you know, just to provide those opportunities for our underserved communities that maybe aren't a private school that has pretty unlimited resources at their disposal. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Erin. Sharda? Oh, yeah, Vincel, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little tidbit of in conjunction with what's already been said about the you know, less access and as far as you know, the demographics being neglected demographics. There's also a matter of connecting those, like with conservation lands. We worked with Together Bay Area and California Academy of Sciences over in San Francisco. Pardon me for my slang and colloquialisms. With using iNaturalists to incorporate and facilitate bioblitzes. So therefore, we can get urban flora and fauna included in, you know, conservation lands' data collection, so that, you know, those things that are upstream are more out in natural environments. It connects those urban environments so they can get the same attention and fill those gaps when that map gets plotted. You know, it gets, you know, data relayed to those who need to know and who will be able to make some change in that area as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Sure, that you wanted to say something.
Just real quick, it's one of the things that I've found is, you know, you need a hook for students to get interested in something. So, you know, this framework, if you will, can be used in so many different ways. Like Erin's using it with water and water quality. You know, we do climate change, but, you know, climate change has so many ramifications. So you can always, you know, incorporate iNaturalist and biodiversity. That's something that we do. But there's just many avenues and intersections. And, you know, the water crisis is the climate crisis, is the, you know, inequity crisis. So you could just pull a lot of things together within this general framework. So I think that's neat.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yes, Alicia.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think that this model kind of mitigate some of that, the disparity, I guess, that could happen by meeting the students where they're already at, you know, like in their school, after school environment, in the classroom. So it really can be implemented in multiple facets, and it looks different for every teacher who's facilitating, or informal educator that's facilitating the process. So while we have schools that are in in the urban jungle down in Miami, right, with concrete all over the place, and then you have more rural areas that are up along the coast, in Palm Beach, that has more green space. Maybe their projects might look a little bit different, but the students are still making change in either way that you look at it. So we don't classify like where the boundaries for them. We let them set their own boundaries.
Yeah, I love that. Setting them their own boundaries. I really like that. Chanel, do you want to add something?
Yes. So for us, we're, you know, an environmental science based program, environmental education program. And through our EAC project, none of the other interdisciplinary topics that kind of came up were planned. But of course, you know, in the end, in reflecting on the project and what things went really well, something that I noticed for the youth and working on our project is that we were kind of able to, throughout the whole year, of course, able to tie in topics, you know, about our city's history, about our city's socioeconomic barriers and environmental justice that tied into our issue, which our issues was the issue they chose, I should say, was tackling how to support the unhoused population that's living in our public parks. And so like the social and emotional learning that also came with that, in terms of the youth kind of talking to each other, learning how to communicate amongst their peers as well as to adults, and speaking about their thoughts on, you know, a pretty hot button issue like homelessness is for us in Austin, but in lots of other cities as well, and talking about those potential solutions through their research and understanding, and talking about it with compassion and a full understanding of the complexity of the issue is something that I never would have guessed that we would have gone down that road, but that was the road that they were picking and kind of taking me along as well. And then in the end too, our project sort of culminated with our youth writing a letter to local officials and neighborhood association groups and things like that, where each student, we had our little introduction and conclusion talking about the issue, but each student had a piece that they wrote themselves in their own words and language. And in our program, we have a lot of English language learners. And so to bring that writing aspect in is not something we tend to do in our programming, with being just outdoor environmental ed focused. We don't do very much computer research or writing or anything. And so to see them speaking up and sharing their opinions, as well as writing those things and sending it off to, these big people who can make decisions, was also something that was interdisciplinary, that couldn't have planned it, but ended up working out really, really well.
That's amazing. And I like that, sometimes the students, take you with them in the journey that they want to follow. And you as as an adult are also learning on the way, because we cannot be experts on everything. And we have to be humble, and say like, yeah, this is something new for me too. So we are learning together, in partnership together. And I love about that. Raina, do you want to add something?
Sorry, I feel like I'm just kind of hovering in the background. I mean, I've got so many thoughts that are coming off of all the different stories that everyone has told. And having lived in multiple places of the panelists here, coming from South Dakota and living in the Bay Area, having not been down south as much, but just kind of seeing this through the whole spectrum of all the communities I've lived and worked in. And I guess bringing it home to Pittsburgh, what has been so amazing again, and why we're so thrilled to be working, I'd say, with Earth Force and with this Environmental Action Civics, is just the sheer power of the youth that we're working with, and seeing them, not even just making mistakes, but having these amazing successes from such a diverse community across Pittsburgh. And the summit that we just did, we did a Youth Climate Action Summit on April 1st, and had some of the students actually organize it and did a lot of the heavy lifting themselves. Mm-hmm. And to me, it is just such a stunning thing that they can run a show and they can have those strong voices, and they can, bring this kind of lesson of civics, environmentalism, action, and just own it. So that I would say is one of the things that I'm just so thrilled about.
I love that they own it. Yes, I like that. I know Alyssa wanted to say something before. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Oh, no, I won't take us back. We've gone so far in the meantime. This has been a really great conversation. I was having issues with like muting and unmuting, but my computer is struggling to keep up. But I guess I would just say to all of this, I so appreciate your different perspectives. It's so interesting to hear how you are all experiencing this work in your programming in your places in these different ways, and how I think it really speaks to like the place-based nature of this work and how powerful that is when it is like your community and you're seeing and experiencing these things versus like something kind of big and nebulous like climate change, right? And so it's like, this is what this looks like in my community. And all of this intersectionality, I know we're going to talk a little bit about intersectionality in terms of like different voices and stuff here in a moment, but life is intersectional, right? Life is not compartmentalized. And so having this like space where it's like civic and environment and art and conversation and writing and all of this is like lived experience. This is life work, right? Life skills and life work. And so thanks all for sharing all those really great perspectives on that. And I'll just like take us into the next question then. So how has environmental action civics helped in the integration of different and diverse voices when discussing environmental issues. I'm curious if how you all have experienced that. And let's see, who hasn't gone first? Alicia, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So we work primarily with teachers, and so our direct contact is that their diverse background and the different students that they reach independently. Some are Title I, some are charter schools, some are private schools. So there's lots of options there, and the result is equally amazing, right? So really aren't the limitations that we see. Our organization also helps support each of them with some funding to help for projects that they might have to bring that to the table. So it just kind of naturally progresses to, like, the process naturally progresses to allow these different voices, student voices, to speak up, whether it's the way that they make the decision on the strategies that they're going to use, or how they can come to voting on how to focus on what root cause they're going to actually focus on, because we know when you get a bunch of students together that they all want it to be their idea, but they, as a collective, they learn how to, vote democratically, right? To decide on what they want to focus on, and being able to do it in a time frame. So we're limited, because it's during the school year, limited to the time frame that they have to be able to do it in. And a lot of it has come to our understanding is that they'll do it one school year, but then they come back to the teacher and ask, like, hey, when are we starting that Everglades project that we worked on last year, which tells us, right, that something is going right, because students are actually asking for them to do work, right? So that's so it's very exciting to see that happen. So there's a lot of diversity on the schools that we reach, and the audience that we have here.
Yeah, that's amazing. Does someone else want to take the question? Yes, sure.
I'll just say really quickly, one of the things I noticed is, in this framework, like, students are so often, I work a lot with youth, and students are often the recipients of information, and that's how they interact with the adults in their lives. And so this project, actually, like, what I observed is, it puts them a little bit in the driver's seat. So just last week, we had students meet with the cafeteria folks to kind of talk about composting in one of my schools I work on. And all of a sudden, like, the students were they were doing the elevator pitch, and they were presenting, and the cafeteria workers were just, sitting back and listening and kind of giving their input. But it really sort of evened the playing field. Like, it felt like they were talking to each other as colleagues, versus, in a normal cafeteria day, you could just imagine, like, that's not the interaction that's happening. The other thing I noticed, again, you're working with youth, is that everybody has a different strength. And so in my group one of the groups I work with, like, some kids are really good artists, and so they are great at putting together those posters to inform people about something. Some people are great presenters, and they really want to be out there, so they're doing their slides. I had a couple of kids, like, they were the video gamer kind, like, kids, and they actually prepared a game so that they could educate their fellow students in this electronic world that they live, what's compostable and what is not, right? And they had it, like, almost like the objects, like basketballs, and they had to kind of sort them. They haven't finished it completely, but, like, like, how cool to rope in all these different skills that usually maybe don't have a voice. So I thought it was neat.
Yes, Kirsch.
I just want to second that what Sharda just said too, in what we've seen, especially in groups that we have, particularly like academically struggling students, and we're all about strengths, being strengths based, and knowing that everybody has unique strengths, and how do we bubble those up, right, and celebrate that and do things together that just makes everybody do well, right? And so, and we noticed that too, where you might have quieter students, but they and I had kids identify their superpowers and kind of talk about that, because everybody's got a superpower. And so it is like, well, I do really well researching, I do really well like interacting, like talking with people, even adults, kind of one-on-one. I do great public speaking, or the artwork, like we had someone do video. What I love about that, because in a normal classroom setting, right, you might just see like that academic piece, right? Whereas when you get things like this and doing projects together in different ways, it's not only authentic, but it really celebrates everybody's strengths as much as you can. And there's that beauty of recognizing your peers for who they are, right? And I just love that. So it's beautiful.
I was having trouble to find the unmute button, but anyway, that's really cool, because I always say, like, everyone has a different set of skills. Not everyone has to be good at everything, and you just use that superpower that you have, to make a change. And that, yes, I love that comment. That amplifies a collective action. Yes. Does someone else want to add something else? Yes, Chanel.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna third and fourth what so many other people have shared, just in terms of just I saw the biggest growth in confidence in all of the students in the project, but particularly those quieter, shyer ones. And in the same way, like not necessarily standing up in front of the group and, directing everyone or anything like that, but in what their superpower was, similar to like your language, Kirsch, like they were good at so many other things that help support the project in, every way. And then I think there was also like, it was so cool seeing the group working together towards a common goal, and like the different types of leaders that kind of came out of it. Everyone isn't going to be the person in the front and telling people what to do. Some are really great listeners and can apply information. Some are really good at working in a small group. Some are really good at working with a big group all together. And so seeing all the different types of ways that they became leaders was really awesome. And then lastly, taking them through the EAC process, like all the steps, and, kind of using the steps to working towards that big ask, and seeing them get all their ducks in a row and doing it and making that ask to the people in power was something that in the beginning, when I told them, here's what we're going to do, nobody was really interested in the end goal, right? But once we worked in the little pieces there and they got to the end goal at the end of the year, they would have never thought that they could get there when they just saw like starting point and end goal. But through the process of like working through all the steps together over the course of the year, we slowly got there together.
Yes, and I think that's the richness of working, through an environmental action civics lens. And I particularly have found that youth have such a strong power and determination, to make changes. And they are so strong. We just need to give them the space, to talk, and share their thoughts with adults, But yeah, I know, Alyssa, you wanted to share something else.
I did see, I think, Vincel, did you have your hand up? Did you want to share just something before we move on?
Sure. I just wanted to like piggyback, namely what Chanel just said, and in that, our group only meets like twice a month, so we're relishing in the process. And a lot of times, some of these youth I've known for like 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and I've never heard them really say anything. They just gone on backpacking trips and they've, done environmental work. But, to be able to see them, in that microscopic view, I mean, the micro, not the macro view of taking control and coming out of a breakout group in a Zoom meeting and leading, having their voice be heard as representing the group, and as Kirsch was saying, like showing their inner superpowers, like having energies and things that they thought that they couldn't do or wouldn't do just naturally come out. And also with we have an intern that also took the EAC back in 2021. And she, like, for example, has never been into Richmond City Hall, when we went over there for the first time. So, and that process of getting to talk to somebody. So everyone's getting little tastes of themselves and stepping outside of their comfort zone where they're still safe, that outward bound, your safe zone, and you're stepping outside of that comfort zone to expand what is internal with you, knowing that like what Chanel said, the start goal and the end goal. If you just, don't look at all that, just look what you can do today in this meeting or, this activity we're doing.
Thank you. That's awesome. I feel like all of these kind of speak to the idea of, when we think about like the integration of different voices around environmental issues, so often youth are not at the table, right? They are not people that you think of like, oh, we're going to make some environmental decisions in our community. Who should we include? Young people. And so giving them those opportunities to walk into City Hall, to understand an issue and talk to the cafeteria folks, to kind of become the experts or at least practice those skills of kind of speaking out on environmental issues that they care about, that they see every day is so cool. So thanks for bringing up, I think, and really highlighting with some great examples how this work can bring so many different voices to the table that maybe aren't always there. Yes, and how those spaces of stretch and growth, right, are ample here. So thank you. Somehow time flies when you're having these great conversations, and so we're here at about 15 minutes left, and we had a couple of questions. I'm going to see if I can tie some things together as we kind of wrap up here. So you all are probably more aware than anyone that while this is such exciting work, and it's like, we love this and we really want to see this happen, it is not always easy to integrate into your programming, right? It's hard to find time or to get, educators are struggling so much right now. So if you're working in standard K-12, that's its own struggle. Like Vincel said, you're meeting twice a month, and so that's challenging. So we know that like this work is important and how valuable it can be and how amazing it can be. And we know that it can also be really difficult to integrate into programming and such. So wondering if, in our short time, we're going to also have a moment for you all to just share kind of a closing comment quickly. So in the time between for this question, if you could just talk a little bit about advice to other groups or organizations maybe looking to do this work, recognizing what is difficult, but maybe why it's important or what's been helpful for you as you try to integrate some of these key environmental action civics practices into your programming and your work. That would be really helpful. So Erin, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Thanks, Alyssa. So our teachers, we primarily work with teachers, and it's been really slow for them to adopt and kind of bring this action piece back. And honestly, COVID really hit our community very hard, and that was kind of when we were really starting to ramp up. We had an in-person symposium in 2019 in November. We were all excited, and then 2020. So it's my biggest piece of advice is just give it time, give it patience, give it funding, invest in your educators. If you are training an educator, I've seen this happen in my years at Friends of the Rouge. If you invest the time in training an educator on the earth force process or the water quality testing piece, even if they change schools or even if they leave the teaching profession, they're going to want to come back and help. So it's such a life-changing experience that it is worth that investment of time and even teacher stipends. Give them funding and an incentive to come to this professional development. It will pay off for you. That is my biggest piece of advice there. And it's okay to start small. Stack your deck, take an easy win just to build momentum. It is very daunting to think, at the end, we're going to build a huge rain garden at our school. Well, maybe you can't get to that point, but maybe you can say, okay, we're going to have Friends of the Rouge come out and start to draft a plan for us to do something like that. Or we can attend a tree planting or another volunteer opportunity that's already going on, just to, you want youth voice and you want that input, but it is also okay to provide those little easy wins for the teachers to take a little bit of that mental lift and coordination off of them. And even a project that's unable to be completed is an incredible learning experience. So, even if things don't go to plan or they might take a little longer, everyone is still getting a lot out of that experience. And it's really important to reflect on what went well, what maybe didn't go so well, what could be different. And
reflection. Love that. Totally. Thank you, Erin. And Chanel, Kirsch, feel free to hop right in. I wanted to just point to Chanel quickly because we had this conversation when you're talking about a lot of these challenges. Chanel and I think we're on the phone like every month as her project was wrapping up after EAC 2021. And she was like, there's just not enough time. And so I wonder, Chanel, I just wonder if you could just share kind of your example quickly, because I thought that was a good one for managing some of those challenges.
And Alyssa, you're kind. It was every week we got together. And yeah, I can definitely speak to just like as the facilitator, not so much the students, right? Like my role in there, I was getting kind of flustered with not being able to make the decisions, having to wait for them each week, or sometimes we didn't make it in, the time that we had together that week. So we had to push it to the next and the next, and really wanting to wrap up the project with something meaningful at the end of the school year, knowing that I was going to lose some seniors who were graduating and the project could lose a little momentum, going back into the fall. And so wanting to really tie it up well, even knowing that we can still pick up, later or whatever. And so we were running out of time towards the end of the school year and, hitting our challenges and roadblocks. But I think like in terms of my advice, like if you're on the fence or unsure about how to kind of weave that into what you're already doing, the amount of support that Alyssa specifically provided to myself and our organization, as well as just Earth Force in general, the amount of support that they give is endless, like quite literally endless. Alyssa and I got together every week and I would tell her about what we were doing and she would help me think through like ways that we can do it. And similarly, like each project is different, and where each project kind of ends or reaches a milestone, even so to speak, is going to be different. And where ours ended was the perfect place for where my youth were, the amount of time that we had, and the resources that we had. And so I would say like definitely do it. My youth, like all youth, are so much more capable than we give them credit for. And this project allowed me to see that, allowed me to take that step back. And the things that I've learned through EAC have now been like folded into the framework of all of our educational programs in regards to what we've already talked about like youth choice and being more student driven and that sort of thing. But really just the whole concept of taking a step back as a facilitator, so that the students in our program can take that step forward and lead in a way that's their own instead of from my brain to theirs.
So well said. So well said. Thank you for that. That was rich and deep. And it definitely, you still got to an ask for change, which was amazing. So huge props for that. Kirsch, go ahead.
Very briefly, I was going to riff off of Erin, but also now it's Erin and Chanel. One is we found, so we work directly with teachers also, but also do some interaction with students when asked. But like thinking of helping them see how like the standards they have to teach, right? Let's say that they're like, well, we have to do this, how it perfectly blends with what they could be doing, right? In this, in EAC. And then the other thing is support. And I love that, Chanel, because you have the perfect story story of what we also experienced was we were talking with educators once a week or once every couple weeks, whenever they needed, to help them figure out, like, what are you doing? How's it going? You know, what else can we do to support? And then also, just how do we take off some of the burden for teachers? So something else we did was either Zoom in or come in person to do activities with the students, and then it kind of helped the teacher kind of see have a different perspective of their students interacting, and they could be a little more participant too. So that level, that authoritative, like, stance that they normally would have, they're more like as part of, right, the student group and asking some good questions, right, and doing some modeling as well, and that really helped tremendously, I would say, for
That's great. Love that. Modeling and more investment, but that the time investment too, right? The, like, all of that. That's so great.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about standards alignment was one of the major things that I was going to share, because a lot of the teachers are, like you said, are already overwhelmed with what am I doing, and trying to like educate them in a way to see it through a different lens where they're already doing these things, they're already teaching to these standards. It's now you're looking through addressing the some specific environmental issues, right, and kind of letting go of the reins a little bit. We definitely at our organization invest in our teachers. We do provide some stipends. We provide them with the support, as I did, Chanel did with Alyssa. I also did with Alyssa by talking with her. Like, panic, like, this didn't go the way I thought. Like, how can you help me think that I'm not failing my teachers? But it turns out patience, it takes time for them to get the momentum going. One is to have them really understand the process and how it fits into their classroom. And we've had multiple years now implementing the program where the returning teachers understand the process a lot better. And so the deep dive on their types of project or the type of action they do is a little bit different, or more pushing for more change than maybe awareness posters of some sort. Like, their first initial thing that students want to do is all make posters or brochures, right? So how do we get the teachers to push them a little bit more? And so being this huge support for them, I think, is
I love that.
a big part.
Echoing, I'm hearing the, like, echoes of that, like, really, like, to get started with this, you need that, like, that good support, and whether that's financial investment in educators, it's time, it's all of this in our students, and, you know, just really that investment. And thanks for bringing up the standards alignment stuff, Alicia. It's so important.
We're happy to say that we are actually offering a summer retreat for teachers this summer. And so, where we found this really tropical garden place that we're bringing them together. And I was like, is anybody going to want to come to this during the summer, right? But we have maxed out on the capacity where we actually have to be like, maybe we have to offer this a second time, right?
That's great.
So we're really excited about that. It takes time. As an organization, it takes time, and as a teacher, it takes time, and it will grow. We just have to stay persistent and be flexible and adapt.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks for bringing those up.
Yes, Denzel.
Yes, I'm gonna try to put out off this list. Have guest speakers with honorariums really helps to get a different voice, get different mentors. Most of our youth are BIPOC, and so if you can get someone that's reflective of that, that also is helpful. Mixing in field work with the process, so like getting outside. I know I've communicated with Chanel, and you know, there was a lot of park visits where they worked in the park, and there were always stuff going on outside. That's always an easy you know, energizer for youth. And have a modifiable end goal for that session or that school year, or that, you know, whatever, however you know long your thing is, because the journey is where the value lies. So I know, especially with us, with the two sessions a month, yeah, just focus on the journey, and don't be afraid to redo. We've done stakeholder mapping for this probably about 3 or 4 times. So yeah, it's all the process. It's all helpful and it's all enriching.
Yes, all your thoughts are amazing, I have to say. it's always a learning, it's a learning process. It takes time, but I think the outcome, it's so rich and it's so worth it. And thank you everyone for sharing your amazing experiences with us. This has been an amazing conversation, to be honest.
Keep talking.
Yeah, yes, I want to do this for hours. Thank you all. I really appreciate you all coming here. I just want to remind the audience that later today we're going to have a youth panel also discussing about how environmental action civics have influence about the work that they do. It's really cool because we're going to give some room to youth to share their experience going through this process. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to everyone joining us today. And I hope I see you later this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks everybody so much. Thanks so much to all of you for being here today. We so appreciate you and the work you do. Have a great day, y'all.
Thank you for having us.